Nice. Hello, everyone. Today we're doing another technical live stream. Happy to be here and happy to see already some folks here in the chat. So, how is everything going? Hope that you had a nice week. I did have a really nice week. And today we are about to share some cool things. We're going into some basics. I'm going to explain now what's the idea because maybe I was thinking now that maybe the title is a bit misleading. It's not misleading. It's just that we're going to do more than just what the title says. Okay. But we're going to wait a couple minutes until everyone joins. So in the meantime, free to share some love here in the chat. I'm happy to see you guys. Hey, Iman. Hey, Avirad. Nice. Hey, Patrick. Hey, Danny. So excited. Nice. Hey, Pablo. And hey, Studio Relief. I would love if you had your names on your profile so I don't have to call you Studio Relief and I can call you by your name. Tell me your name so I can properly say hi to you. Nice. Okay. I wish that everyone had a nice week. As I said, very busy week, but I'm happy so far how everything is turning out this week. And as always, it makes me happy to wrap the week up with a live stream, just sharing things with you guys. Nice. Okay. One more minute and then I'm gonna start. So anybody in the comments that wants to share anything else, feel free to do it. I love to read about your week. If you achieved something, if you're happy about something, if you're sad about something, you can also share it. We're always here to, give you feedback if we can. But I think that we are just going to start. If somebody's joining now and misses something, you can always rewind a bit back and see from the beginning. So officially start of the live stream. Hello, everyone. Today we are talking about the developer starter, but we're taking it bit of a different approach. Okay, so instead of just walking you through the developer starter, which I already did a couple times. So if you look in YouTube for Finsweet developer starter, you will see already some live streams talking about how we've got this cool template that is called developer starter that you can use to start just doing custom code for your webflow projects. It's very nice. It's very simple in a sense that it's just plug and play. You can just clone the template and start right away using it with a bunch of goodies. So you get TypeScript built in, you get a bundler with a developer server, you also get formatting, you get linting, you get automatic deploys to npm if you want to release things, etc. So there are a lot of things going on in there. Okay, so I will be talking about it again, but the idea is that today you are learning how to build a boilerplate by yourself. Okay, so imagine that for some reason you want to have your own template with your own tools, with your own setup, and you want to learn exactly the process of setting it up. Okay, so instead of just going, with a high level overview of just showing you like, hey, this works like this and it's fine, I will try to teach you the basics. So we're going a bit more in depth. We're going to talk about how to create an npm package, how to work with Node.js, how to install dependencies, how to work with TypeScript, how to install a bundler, how to use that bundler to bundle your code or to spin up a server, how to install Predator, how to install ESLint or any other linter, or how to create CI/CD pipelines so you can integrate all of these, etc. Okay, so I'll try to go into these basics so you have the enough knowledge to create your own template, to create your own setup if you want to work with this. And I think that you also can learn a lot of things in the meantime, just related to all the basics of how the platform works. Nice. I see some more people here. Good to see you guys. Hey, Himansu. Nice. The Finsweet live streams 148, 158, and 163. Nice, Himansu. You did some homework. Thank you. Okay. how did I pre-open this video with every new project I start? Well, you can watch it today, and then hopefully you'll remember the basics. Okay, great. So let me share my screen, and we're gonna start. As I mentioned, the idea is to use the Finsweet Developer Starter as the template, okay? But we are going to create it from scratch. So I'm not gonna just clone this and start using it, and that's it. I'm going to create this from scratch. So if you have any questions, if you want to know more about some specific concept, just let me know, okay? We've got here the comments. This is the live stream. So I love to interact with you guys. Anytime that you want me to go more into depth in something, just let me know, okay? I've got here this very long checklist. I don't know if we will have enough time to talk about everything, but essentially we'll start from the very basics, which is just the platform, Node.js, which is what we're going to use. And then we'll talk just a bit about Git, and then we'll start installing things like TypeScript. We'll install a bundler. We install Prettier for formatting. We'll install ESLint for linting. We'll also do some testing if we have enough time. Okay. And then we'll talk about setting up CI/CD pipelines with GitHub Actions. Okay. You can see how it's quite a lot of things. So I'm not sure if I will be able to do it, but if today we don't have enough time, remember that next week, another live stream, just as every Friday. Probably the next week, it's going to be for Finsweet Plus users. So if you want me to go a lot in depth in something, maybe we can tackle next Friday when we go in the private sessions with Finsweet. Oh my God, I forgot how to speak, with Finsweet Plus. So then we have more time and more, it's more chill, and we can have a more in-depth conversation. Nice. Okay, so first of all, as I mentioned, Finsweet Developer Starter, it's just a template that you can use when custom coding any project. I said that it's made for webflow projects, which is correct. So we use these at Finsweet to create all kinds of custom projects, but this can really be used for anything, okay? Because in webflow, all we're just doing is write custom code and then deploy it somewhere and serve it from webflow. So same as we do it for webflow, you can do it for pretty much anything, okay? So the idea is that today you just pick those concepts instead of just thinking about the specific template. Great. Okay, so I want to create all of this. And usually, when you clone a project, when you clone this boilerplate, you kind of get scared, right? There's quite a lot of things going on here. Like, okay, a lot of folders and then a lot of config files, like, oh my God, ESLint JSON, get attributes, get ignore, pre-IRC, package.json, this config, another config, etc. So there's quite a lot of things to unpack here, right? And it's easily scared, but trying to break it down today, maybe, hopefully, it will make more sense to you guys after we're done. Okay. So this, as I mentioned, this runs on Node.js. Okay, we are JavaScript developers, we are web developers, and the scripting language that we use is JavaScript. So we're going to use Node.js to be able to run JavaScript in our computers. Okay, so Node.js, for those who are not using it, you can always just download it. It's called nodejs.org, and it's just the runtime that will allow our computer to understand JavaScript. Okay, if you buy a new computer from scratch, if you go to this store, get a brand new computer, and you try to run JavaScript on it, unless you're using a browser, you probably will not be able to. Okay, Node.js, it's a runtime that you can install in your computer, and then it will make your computer and understand how to process, how to parse, how to execute JavaScript language. Okay, nice. Thank you, Gabe, for sharing that. Okay, nice. So once we're installed, one of the things that comes with Node.js is a package manager. Okay, so essentially, package managers are just, these exist for all the languages. Well, not all, but many languages have package managers. So imagine that you've got some code that you want to reuse across different projects, right? I don't know, maybe you've got some custom logic for summing numbers. You've got some custom logic for displaying some data on a canvas, like whatever you can think of. You can grab that project and just put it in a package, and that's what we call a package manager. Allows us to install packages in our projects. Okay, you don't need to be writing everything from scratch. You can always use work that you have done in the past or some other people have done in the past, and that's just called a package that you can install in your project using a package manager. Okay, so this Node.js comes with a package manager that is called npm. Okay, this is something that you don't need to install because it comes already pre-installed with your Node.js environment. And all you need to do is when you open a terminal, you can already start typing npm. Oh my god, this is very, let me zoom in. If you start typing npm, you'll get some commands that you can use to create new packages, install dependencies, uninstall dependencies, update dependencies, etc. Okay, but I'm not going to use npm. Okay, npm is the default package manager that comes with Node.js, but there's another version that I like more, and it's called pnpm. Okay, and pnpm just stands for performant npm. So kind of it's like a better version of npm. It's just an open source project that some people did to improve what the npm ecosystem provides. Okay, there's some major differences between npm and pnpm, and I see that my browser just froze. We're good? Yes. But essentially, the main difference of npm and pnpm will be that when you've got your project here, okay, let's imagine that this is our project. Let's call this, I don't know, my cool project. And this is so small. When you've got this project, usually you want to install some dependencies, right? So we've got these dependencies, these building blocks that we just installed here. So let's imagine that this is one dependency, another dependency, another dependency, another dependency. Okay, you've got a lot of different dependencies that you have installed in your project, right? And these dependencies come with some size, right? There are some files in there, the code, but there's also some additional files, and some dependencies tend to be a bit heavy. Maybe some dependency is just about 10 kilobytes, but maybe there's a dependency that's 2 megabytes. We don't know, right? And now imagine that you don't only have one project on your computer, you've got 1,000 projects on your computer, right? So the moment that you start having many different projects and you're installing dependencies on all those projects, what can happen is that you are repeating a lot these packages that you're installing again and again and again, right? This takes space on your computer, and also maybe you're downloading some resources that you don't need because your computer already has them, just in a different project. So the main difference between npm and pnpm is that pnpm will not install those dependencies in your project, but instead it will install those dependencies in a separate store, okay, in a separate space in your computer. And then all it will do is, instead of just downloading that dependency every single time for each project, it will just link them. So we'll go and say, oh, okay, you're trying to use this dependency on this specific version. We've got that. That's already in our computer. So I'll just go ahead and link that file directly from the shared store. So this means that if I already installed in the past, I don't need to download it again, right? So it's faster to install everything, and then we're saving up a lot of space because we're not downloading things repeatedly. Okay, there are other things that come in very handy, like for example workspaces, but that's a completely separate topic, and we don't have enough time to talk about everything today. But yeah, pnpm, cool tool. We're going to use that. Okay. So with a mix of this, we're going to start using pnpm to create our first package. And this is going to be your own boilerplate, your own set of tools that you want to use when developing. Okay. So I'll just go to my repositories folder in here, and I will open this on a terminal. Okay. I will just do, in macOS, I can just do this, new terminal folder. You don't need to do it like this. In Windows, you can always right click, and I think that there's an option if you go to the more that says something like open this folder on a terminal or something like that. Okay. And in here, all I will do is do pnpm init. Okay. Oh, No, I don't want to do that. First, I want to create a folder first. So forget that I just did this. I'm gonna remove this, and I'm gonna create a new folder. So I'll create a folder like this. Oh, let me close this. Let me zoom in here, and we're gonna do stream boilerplate like that. Okay, and let's go to stream boilerplate. Nice. Okay, so now we are in the folder. Again, you could just do it manually. You can come here and just say new folder and just do it. Okay, but we've got this team stream boilerplate here, and all I'm gonna do now is do these pnpm init. That's it. Okay, that's all you need to create a package. Just do pnpm init, and all it will happen is that it will create this package.json file. Okay, this package.json is the entry file that defines your package. It defines the name of the package, it defines the version, it gives some more information like the description, the author, the repository if you have one, etc. It will also have the information about the dependencies. It will have the information about the main entry files, the files that you want to publish. If you deploy this to the shared package to npm essentially. And also you can do other things like define scripts. You can also define PeerDependencies, blah, 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 blah. There are many, many things, okay? But this is a very simple package.json, and I'm going to open this on VS Code. Okay, so nope, I didn't want to do this. No, just close because I didn't want to do this. I want to go to this specific folder. So again, let's open the terminal here and do code plum. Okay, I'm opening VS Code essentially with this folder. Okay, so if you guys don't have it, you can always go ahead and install VS Code. Just look for Visual Studio Code on Google like this, and you can download it. It's my editor of preference, but maybe you want to use some other IDE like JetBrains or WebStorm. Completely up to you. I'm going to use VS Code. Okay, and in VS Code, as I said, we have these packages of .json. Super simple. We've got the name of the package. We've got some version, no description for now, and then the main entry file, some test script, and then some extra info. Okay, so with this, we are already ready to start writing code. So if I wanted to just write some code, I could do it. So for now, I'm going to come here and say, okay, I will create my source folder. And this is just a convention. You don't really need to do this. I could just create an index.js file here. And again, I don't have to call this index.js. This is just conventions. Okay, so in here, usually the entry file, it's called index.js or TS if you're using TypeScript. And usually by convention, the code it's placed in a source file so you can separate different things. So if you've got some bits in, some files in the code base that are not really related to the source code. So maybe you've got some config files, or you've got something related to the building workflow, or maybe something related to GitHub workflows, whatever, something that it's not strictly just the source code, then you probably want to put it somewhere else. Okay, that's why it's usually convention to put it in here. So source index.js, and in here we could start already having some code. That's it. That's the end of the stream. That's it. Really, all it takes is this: just create a package.json and then add an index.js file, and that's good. Okay, but now we probably want to do more things, right? Because if you want to use, you want to install dependencies, you probably then want to bundle things. So we'll talk about this. If you want to have type safety, you probably want to use TypeScript. So we'll talk about this. If you're working with some team and you want to make sure that everyone is formatting the code the same way, you probably want to use Prettier, etc. Nice. And I see some people recommending NVM. Thank you. Yes. So if you want to manage Node.js versions, instead of going to Node.js, if you're a bit more tech savvy, you can always use NVM. And NVM is an open source project that allows you from the terminal to easily install versions and update Node.js versions or switch the versions depending on whatever specific version you want to use when working on a project. Okay, it's a very nice project. So if you want to check that, you can do it. If you don't, just go ahead and Node.js, download, and you're good to go. Okay. Okay, great. So now that we've got this, what can we do? What can we do with this? So, well, one of the cool things that VS Code has built in is that you could already just, I think that you can spin up a live server directly here, but I completely forgot. I think that it was built in into VS Code. I know that there are extensions. So if you want to install something like live server, and it's going to be an extension that allows to serve that file. Oh, you meant NeoBeam. Oh, yeah. My bad. So if you want to have to use this, it's fine. I know that VS Code has a way of serving files directly from here, but I forgot how to do it. I don't know if you have to open a port and then you serve it. I forgot, honestly. Maybe if we do live. No. Anyways, but let's go and just implement the bundler so we can have a dev server already in our project. Okay. First of all, what we need to learn is how to install dependencies, because the next thing that we're going to do, oh, I wanted to mention Git. We'll mention that now. But the next thing that we wanted to do is just add TypeScript, for example, and then we can talk about adding a bundler. So we need to learn how to install a dependency. Okay. And as I mentioned, npm is the, what would be the word? It's an open repository of packages that you can install. Okay. And in here, you can search for anything. Maybe you want to install TypeScript. And if you want to install TypeScript, you want to use TypeScript in your project, TypeScript will have a package in there. Maybe you want to use React. You've got React in here. Maybe you want to use something like Prettier to format the code. You've got Prettier here. Essentially every single tool in the JavaScript ecosystem is usually published on npm, so you can install it directly just using your package manager. So in this case, let's go ahead, let's open the terminal, and for this live stream, I will try to put it on the right. Let's see if this is better. Let me know, guys, let me know if here on the right makes more sense to you. But essentially here, we can install dependencies. And the way that we do it with pnpm, it's by using pnpm add or pnpm install. Okay, both are the same, are just the equivalent. So if I say pnpm add, and the first thing that I want to install is just TypeScript, like this. Okay, this TypeScript, now there's one thing that you have to distinguish when you install dependencies, because when you install dependencies, these dependencies can either be dependencies or they can be DevDependencies. Okay, and the main difference between these, and this is mostly just a convention, because many times if you install it on the wrong place, it will just work fine, because bundlers just take things and bundle them and it's fine. But usually as a convention, what you want to define as a dependency is the things that are included in your project's source code. So essentially, if I use some package and that package will be shipped to my users. So for example, let me just think about, I don't know, is even. I think that there's a package that it just tells you if a number is even. I don't know if it is even or is not even. Like, I don't know, like any whatever you want to have. Well, yeah, thank you, Vera. There's actually a third thing that it's called PeerDependencies. We can also talk about this. But any dependency that it's shipped to your users, that's called a dependency. Then you've got the DevDependencies, and these are dependencies that you just use in your development environment. Okay, so things that help you write the code, help you lint the code, fix issues, whatever, but it's not really shipped to your users. It's just helping you as a tool to work on your code base. That's usually called a dev dependency. And then additionally, you've got the pure dependencies, and that's just a way of defining that a dependency has other dependencies. So imagine that you create a package that you want other people to install. Okay, so this is going to be our package, but this package also depends on other packages. So maybe you also have some other package that you depend on. Okay, and this is my, and this is someone else's. Okay, this is going to be a peer dependency. So when people installs my package, I can tell them, hey, you need to also install this other package because I'm using that in my package. Okay, so we create this tree of dependencies. And this, as I mentioned, is defined in peer dependencies. Okay, but let's just go back to dependencies and dev dependencies for now. Here, I'm gonna make a quiz to you guys. I want to install TypeScript now. And TypeScript, it's JavaScript with syntax for types. TypeScript will allow me to define types to my code, and then I will be able to bundle that code, create the JavaScript equivalent, and ship the JavaScript code. So, guys, I want you to tell me, what do you think if the TypeScript dependency should be a dependency or should be a dev dependency? No, come on, I'm gonna wait. You've got 5 seconds. Virat already knows it, of course. Nice. Vinicius is already saying dev. You're right. Okay, so we want to install TypeScript as a dev dependency because we are not shipping TypeScript to our users. We are using TypeScript in our code base to write the code properly, right? But then TypeScript cannot be executed on a browser. We cannot send that because it's not going to work. Instead, we're going to use a bundler, or we can also use just the TypeScript compiler to compile from TypeScript to JavaScript, and that JavaScript is what we use to send to the users. Okay, so TypeScript, it's never sent to the users, so it's a dev dependency. So here I'm doing pnpm add TypeScript, and I'm also going to do a flag with the D. Okay, I can just say dash dash dev, I think, or I can just do the D measure capital D, and this is going to define the dependency as a dev dependency, like this. Nice. Okay. So now we've got a dependency. Now let's imagine that I want to update a dependency. So instead of having TypeScript as 5, let's do 4. Okay, let's go one version down and let's install this. So I'm going to do pnpm install to make sure that we've got the version here. Okay. Now let's imagine that I don't want to use version 4, but I want to just update the dependency. I want to see if we've got new versions. One of the cool things that you get also when using pnpm is that we get the pnpm update command. Okay, and with pnpm update, we've got just this command that will allow us to see all the dependencies, all the new versions that we could potentially install, and then we can select them if we want and just install them automatically. That is managed automatically by just pnpm. We don't need to do anything special. Okay, so in our case, we want to do the interactive flag. So we want to see a list of the dependencies so we can choose across them. And also, we can also say that I want to get the latest versions. For example, okay, if you got a monorepo, maybe you want to use the recursive, and there are other flags, but I'm not going to talk about this. So let's do pnpm update, and I'm going to do interactive, and I'm going to do also the latest version with these flags. Okay, so the latest is -l, and interactive is -i. So if we do this, now what's going to happen is that I can see here a list of my only dependency for now. If I had more, I would see them. And I can see how TypeScript is right now installed as 4.9.5, but we've got a newer version here. So I can just select it and install it. Nice. Look at it, how easy it is. Nice. Okay, so now we've got TypeScript, which means that we can go here and instead of using index.js, we can use index.ts. Okay, nice. But we've got a problem now. And sorry, the problem is that this project doesn't know what TypeScript settings should you be using? Because there are many, many ways of using TypeScript. You can use TypeScript with just some few compiler options, or you can define TypeScript to be very strict and warn you about many, many different things, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do, when you install TypeScript, by the way, I recommend that you install TypeScript on your project, but you also install TypeScript globally on your computer, because then you can use the TSC CLI. So I'm going to also install TypeScript as a global dependency. A global dependency is a dependency that it's not of a living for a project, but instead is available to your whole computer. So it's a dependency that just lives in your computer and can be used across all the projects. Okay. So I'm going to do pnpm add TypeScript again, but instead of doing the D for that dependency, I'm going to do the G as for global, like that. Okay. So now we've got TypeScript as a global dependency. Nice. Which means that now I can use the tsc command line. Okay. And the tsc command line gives me some functionalities that I can use to work with TypeScript on my project. So this tsc command line has one thing, that it's tsc init. This flag will just tell TypeScript to create a new config file so my project understands TypeScript. So let's do it. We've got this tsc init, create a new tsconfig with JSON with the target, the module, strict, ES module interrupt, skip live checked, and force consistent casing in file names. Nice. So we can check this here. Let's go ahead and check this out like that. So in here, we've got a few things. You can see how there are many, many compiler options, and this can be a bit overwhelming. So for now, I'm not gonna, let's even just remove them. I don't want you guys to be confused. So let's remove all of these. We'll just focus on the defaults that came with TypeScript, like this. So the command, all this goes away. And then I'm going to get rid of all of this. I'm not going to go deep into TypeScript definitions because we would need just a live stream to talk about that. But there are many, many settings. And if you guys are interested, maybe we could do a live stream just talking about TypeScript. I really love working with TypeScript, so it can be interesting for many of you guys. Okay, so we've got these settings. Let's actually leave this so I can talk about the strict flag. Okay, so here we're just defining a few settings for TypeScript. We can define how strict we want TypeScript to be when checking for our code. So in this case, we're defining a target, and I'm going to do ES next. And this target is essentially saying, hey, I want my code base to be compatible with these changes of JavaScript. Because if you know, the JavaScript language is constantly being updated. So every year, there are new features coming to JavaScript. And these features are flagged, are always classified between a version. Okay, so we've got ES 2015, okay, the latest one would be ES 2023, or I can just say ES next for now. We're just going to use the latest version, okay? This module is just going to define how we work with dependencies. And in this case, I'm not going to do CommonJS. I'm going to do Node next. And this setting is just going to help me when importing dependencies, okay? This is just making sure that this is the CommonJS and ES modules are compatible. I'm going to deep dive into this. And this is just force consistent casing in file names. This, I think, it's just testing for the file names, as the name says. And lastly, the strict flag. Strict flag defines how strict will TypeScript be at checking everything. So if we go more in depth, for example, we could check if there are implicit any definitions, or if we should be doing null checks when we're interacting with a variable in TypeScript. We want to check if the variable is defined or not, or if, I don't know, like all these different settings here are part of the strict flag. And I really recommend you guys that you just leave the strict flag on, okay? It's going to be stricter. You're going to get more errors, but your code base will be safer. So let's leave the strict flag on for now. And we can just leave it as is, like this, okay? So now we can already, for example, compile a code because we've got the tsconfig JSON. Nice. If I come here and I just said tsc, this will compile my code. That's it. Okay. So in this case, we've got this console log. Nice. And this is just the compile code that TypeScript did. In this case, I think that because we're doing a type module, are we doing a type module? No, we should do a type module. We'll talk about this in a second. Let me try to compile again. Yeah, nice. So essentially, TypeScript takes my code that it's TypeScript. So if I do something like test string and I do here hello world like this string bit, this type definition here, it's TypeScript specific. But if I compile my code, now this just becomes JavaScript. This code can run. This code cannot run on the browser because browsers don't understand TypeScript definitions. Patrick is asking, sorry, is ESNext and NodeNext a specific version or just the latest syntax? The latest syntax, yes. And in this particular case, I'm defining NodeNext instead of ESNext just because we are working, we're compiling with Node. So it's fine to use NodeNext. Probably instead of doing this, we might want to use, I don't know if it was, it would probably work also with ESNext, but I really don't know what are the differences between all these different versions. I'm going to be honest with you. I just know that, whoops, NodeNext works fine when importing dependencies for Node.js. Nice. If you got more questions, by the way, drop them here in the chat. So we've got our code. Nice. We can compile it with TSC, but like we want to do more things, right? Because we're really not even there. The first thing that we want to do is that we want to make sure that we can check if our code is fine, okay? So for example, if I come here and I change this to be a number, you can see how now I'm getting here an error. And that's just because TypeScript is warning me. It's saying, hey, this is supposed to be a number, but you're giving me a string, right? So now if I try to compile this, I will get an error. And this is nice because this means that we cannot compile this unless the code is working completely fine. But the problem is that the moment that we start working with a different bundler, probably the bundler will skip this because the bundler really doesn't care about TypeScript. The bundler will just remove the TypeScript definitions and it will call it a day. That's it. Okay. So we want a way to be able to check without compiling with TypeScript if the code is working fine. Okay. And we can do that by doing tsc --no emit. So essentially we're doing, hey, I want you to try to compile this, but don't output any files because we don't need it. We'll use a bundler for that. So if I do this, now I'm not generating, let me get rid of this file. I'm not generating any output and I'm just checking if the code is fine. And you can see how it's not fine. I'm getting an error. But if I change this to a string again, this is going to be absolutely fine. Okay, this is working now fine. So going back to the package.json where we are defining all the boilerplate, all the available settings for my project, we can define scripts. Now, we know for sure that tsc no emit is something that we will want to run constantly. So every time that we want to deploy some new changes, or not even deploying, just checking if everything is fine in a CI/CD workflow, we want to check if everything is looking good in our code base. And we can do that by running tsc no emit. Now, I don't want to be typing that every single time. So instead of doing that, we could create a script. Let's come here. Let's get rid of this test script and let's call one script called check. And this check script will call tsc --no emit. Essentially, it's kind of like a shortcut to run my command. Obviously, this one is very short, but the moment that we get longer commands, this will be more convenient. So now instead of running tsc no emit, I can do, for example, pnpm check. And this will run my tsc no emit like that. Okay, you can see how it went to my root repository and then it run the tsc no emit. I'm using pnpm check because that's a convention in pnpm. If you use npm, you have to write npm run check. So that's the main difference also with pnpm and npm. pnpm has all just direct calls to the scripts of the package. Okay, great. We are just one step further to set up our own developer starter. Nice. Let me go to my notes here. I've got this. We've talked about installing dependencies, updating dependencies. We will initialize Git now in a second. We had the quick start. We talked about compiler options. For example, if you go in the developer starter template and you check for the tsconfig, you will see how the tsconfig from the template in here has these extends Finsweet tsconfig. And they're just something that we did in Finsweet so we can share the same configurations across all the projects that we have at Finsweet. So if you go ahead and look for GitHub Finsweet tsconfig, I wrote it very bad, but it's here. This is essentially just a public repository that you go ahead and check, and that it contains a shared tsconfig with the settings that we use at Finsweet. Okay, so we use this target with this module. Oh, we use ESNext. Nice. I'm just gonna use ESNext then instead of NoNext. ESNext. Nice. And we want to do some, strict. Also, we use verbatim module syntax. I really like this option, so I'm also gonna enable it. This option essentially makes sure that when you're importing a dependency, if it's a type, you have to define it. So if I'm importing something in here, we'll talk about importing stuff in our project. Imagine that I have something here, and it could be just a dependency, my dependency, or it could be a type dependency. Okay, so the verbatim module syntax forces you to define that something is a type versus a regular dependency. Okay, but you need to know a bit more about TypeScript to understand this probably. We've got also the module resolution. That's what I wanted to use. Like this resolution. It's really what I wanted to talk about. So I was confused here in the module. Module ESNext, completely fine. Then module resolution, then it's when we are importing and installing dependencies and using them in our projects. You want to define how you want to use it. If you want to use it as the Node 10, which would be the CommonJS version, or you want to use it as NodeNext, which would be the newer version that I think it's missing ESM and CommonJS, or bundler, which in this case, it's convenient for us because we're going to use a bundler. Nice. Okay. So tsconfig, all good. Next thing, we've seen how to build things. We've seen how to type check. We can jump into just initializing this as a Git repository, okay? And initializing this as Git is something that we will probably want to do because you want to store your code base in Git. I'm not saying GitHub, I'm saying Git, which is the version control that we've got. So not GitHub, sorry. Let's Google Git, and Git is the version control system that allows you to store, code and see differences on every single update that you do. So if you don't have Git in your computer, you probably also want to install that, because now when you have that installed, I'm going to do git init. And when I do git init here, the first thing that you will see is now that everything turned green. That's because if I open this in Finder and I come here, how do I see hidden files? Let me see. I want to inspect hidden files. I don't know how to do it in Mac, sorry. But if you know how to do it, you will see how inside this folder, now there is a Git folder. Okay, and that Git folder contains all the changes that we do to our code base. Okay, so it's easier to maintain a changes history. And because we're initializing GitHub, we also want to create a git ignore file. Is -la. Oh, well, yeah, I could do ls. Yeah, right. Yeah, if I list the files, I should be able to see the git file. Nice. So if we're using the command line, thank you, Berat. Now we can see how there's a git folder, and that git folder contains all the changes. But we are not shipping that to GitHub. So that Git folder stays in my computer, okay? Also, there are things that you don't want to ship to your users. Sorry, not to your users. You don't want to put into GitHub. And one of the things is these node modules folder. Okay, let me explain. Let's add it here, node modules. And any folder, file, whatever that I define in this git ignore file, it's just going to tell Git to ignore this file or folder anytime that we push a commit to our repository. So now you can see how this changes colors. Everything is green, but the node modules is gray, and that's because it's being omitted. It's being ignored by Git. Now, why don't we want to use don't we want to ship node modules to GitHub? First of all, because it's humongous. Probably there's quite a lot of things going on in there. So all these dependencies, you don't want to be uploading them anytime that there's, a change in your code base. It just simply, whenever you check out a repository, you will install these dependencies in your computer. If somebody else is taking your project and it's checking it out to their computer, then they will install dependencies, etc. Okay, and that's why in package.json, the dependencies are defined with a specific version. That's because any person that takes this project and installs by doing a pnpm install, all the dependencies will be installed to the exact version that it's defined here. Also, we've got this pnpm block file, and this pnpm block just defines all the dependencies and their dependencies and their dependencies, just the whole tree of dependencies. So if I install my project and I do something different, my pnpm block file will be different, and now we will see that something changed. Maybe some dependency was different. Maybe I removed something. Maybe I added something. Maybe I updated something, etc. Okay, great. Okay, so we've got Git here. Let's go back to my template. Let's start talking about using a bundler. Why do we need a bundler? Let's try it out. So, for example, let's use the Finsweet tsutils package. So here, if I use my Finsweet, I think it's tsutils. If I search for it, you will see how there's a package that we published from the Finsweet organization that it contains a bunch of utilities that maybe we want to use in our webflow projects. Okay, so in this case, maybe I want to use this dependency in my project. So we'll come here and I will say pnpm add, and then add Finsweet tsutils. And that's going to be a dependency, not a dev dependency, because there are utils that maybe I want to ship to my users. Okay, so now that we've got this, maybe I want to import this, right? So import blah, blah, blah from at Finsweet tsutils. Let's see, we could do something like publish date, okay? So the one util that we have here in this package is that we can read the publish date of a specific webflow site. So maybe I want to do that. Maybe I want to see publish date, and I'm going to say get publish date like this, and then I just want the console log this publish date. Now, look what happens if we compile this using TSC. Remember that TSC is the compiler that comes with TypeScript, but it's a compiler. It's not a bundler. So look what happens here. If we inspect the compiled code, which is this index.js file, what happened is that it really didn't do anything because there's no TypeScript. If I did something like, I think that this has to be a date or undefined. So if I define this like this, it will just strip the types. As you can see, it strips the types, but it does not include the code of Finsweet tsutils in my own file. That package, it's still living somewhere else in my computer, but I don't want that package to live in my computer. I want to grab everything together, create a single bundle, and then be able to ship it to my browser, to my users. Okay, so that's why we don't need only just a compiler, we need a bundler to do that. And in my case, I'm gonna use esbuild. I just use esbuild because it's very simple and it's fast as fuck. So I love it. But there are many other options that you could use instead of esbuild. You could use I don't know, like Webpack. To me, it's a bit outdated nowadays, but it's an option that maybe many projects use. You can use Rustpack, which I think it's a version of Webpack, but in Rust. There's also Parcel. There is Rollup. There is esbuild, as I mentioned. There is TurboPack. It's the one that Next.js uses, I think, etc. So there are many different bundlers that you could use. Maybe you've heard also of Vite. Vite is really not a bundler. Vite is kind of like a higher level tool that contains bundling and more things. And Bit, under the hood, it uses Rollup and esbuild. So it's not bundling with any other tool. It's using these tools. So in my case, I'm just going to skip the middleman and I'm going to use esbuild right away. Okay. So esbuild, again, question to you guys. I want to install esbuild, but should it be a dependency or should it be a dev dependency? It's going to be our bundler. Come on, give me that. And thank you, Jonathan. The Debit Starter template is fantastic, huge part of my workflow now, and has unlocked so much for me in Webflow. I've learned so much from you guys. Thank you. Oh, nice. Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate that. Yeah, Josh, you're right. Dev. Okay, so let's add esbuild, and it's going to be a dev dependency like that. Okay. So we've got here esbuild in our dev dependencies, and now we can start already using esbuild. Now, if we go here to esbuild, we can just use it through the CLI if we wanted to. So imagine that we want to do our first bundle. So in this particular case, I think that esbuild, we can just call esbuild. Yeah. So esbuild can be used either from the CLI, which means that I can use it in my terminal. Let's try it. So if I have here, I don't have esbuild because I want to use it from here. Oh, by the way, one thing that you should know, and it's that when you have a tool installed in your project, like TypeScript or esbuild, that tool, it's not accessible from the CLI directly. Oh, yeah, nice. So I could do, no, it's not pnpm run esbuild. Usually what you want to do is pmpx. In that case, you could use esbuild, okay? But so the main difference is that if I try to use esbuild directly when I install it in my package, in my project, I cannot use it right away in my CLI. I would have to come in my scripts. I would have to define something like build. And then here I could say esbuild source index.ts and bundle like this, okay? And then I can come here and do pnpm build. And that's going to work. Nice. Okay, so it bundled the code, but it outputted it here. It's a bit weird, I know. If you want to use that directly in your CLI, you want to install that tool, but globally. Okay, so you want to do pnpm add esbuild -g if you want to use it from the CLI, but it's really not necessary usually because you will probably just define a script like I did here. Yarn works different in this case. Probably, yes. Okay, but going back to esbuild, for now, we're saying here esbuild source index.ts -- bundle. Nice. But we also want to define the output of that. So we're going to say also -- out file. It's going to be, sorry, it's going to be, can I do, oh, I have to escape that like this. I want to do this index.js like that. Okay. So if I do this, oh, and I run this, oh my God, come on, my bad. And I run pnpm build, now it will take this file, it will do the source index.ts, it will bundle it because we're saying, hey, take everything and bundle it together. And then we'll create an output file that goes into this index.js. And again, same as we've got a convention for the source folder to have usually the source code, there's also usually a convention to have the output as dist or build. Usually I see more dist than build, but it's also a convention. And now if we check the output, As a difference, let's compare it with the TypeScript version. So this is the TypeScript version, and you can see how it did not include the package. But if we check the esbuild version, this version includes the package. So this version just took my code and it also injected the function that I used from my package. That's what the bundler is doing. It's just grabbing things and putting them together in an output. Okay. So now that we've got this, another thing that I want to do is I don't want to be committing to GitHub the output, because usually in your repository, you just want to have the source files. You don't want to have the output. There are some cases that maybe you want to have it, but in many, many cases, you don't want to do that. You just want to have the source file, and every time that you want to deploy that, that deployment will happen. So the building of the output files will happen during the deployment. Okay, so now that we've got this, we've got the bundler, but I want to go, I want to have a bit more control. So instead of doing esbuild like this, I want to have some code using the API from esbuild. So in this case, as I mentioned, we can either use the CLI or we can create our own code with the API from esbuild. Okay, so if I come here and now let's create another file. I'm gonna say, let's call this build.js. And in this build.js, I want to define all the instructions for esbuild, so I can just compile my code, but instead of using the CLI, I'm defining the instructions with JavaScript. So the first thing that I'm going to do is import everything as esbuild from esbuild, like that. And now we've got esbuild as a dependency. Esbuild. Let me see if I'm importing the types. Now here, nice. So with esbuild, the way that you define things usually is you first define a context. And this context will contain all my settings. Like, hey, I want to grab the code from here. I want to transform it this way. And then I want to output it to that place, etc. So we define these settings in the context. So here we'll pass some options. The first option will be the entry points, I think. And in this case, Copilot is giving me some hints. I'm going to say, hey, the entry point, it's the source index.ts file. Let me get rid of that. Nice. Now we want to define the output. So the output will be thing that out there will just be the dist folder, like that. Okay. So we already have enough things. I could already just do this like that. We just want to define the entry point and the output directory, but we can go a bit more in depth. For example, we can define the target. We can define if we want to be ES next, or if we want this to be ES5, or if we want this to be ES 2022. esbuild also will do some transpiling. So if we're doing some code that is using some syntax that it's not yet available in the version that we define here in target, it will transpile it to use that different version. But in this case, I'm going to do ES next. We're just going to use the latest versions. And let me see if we can do something else. For now, there are so many options. Yeah, let's minify the code also. For now, okay, I'm gonna minify this. And what else can we do? Packages, plugins, no plugins, all good. Yeah, all good. Let's do this. Okay. So now that we've got this context, we can do now context.build, I think. Oh, wait, this is asynchronous. So we're going to wait for this, and then we're going to, do we have to do it like this, or do we have to do esbuild context like that? So essentially we're saying, hey, build and use this context specifically. So now if we go back to our package.json, instead of doing this build command, calling directly esbuild from the CLI, instead what we're going to do is, hey, I want you to run this build.js file that contains all the instructions to build my project. So we're going to say node build.js. NodeJS. Okay, Node, we're just saying, hey, I want you to execute this file using Node, because maybe we're dealing with a different language. Who knows? So in this case, we're dealing with JavaScript. We want to execute it using Node. So if we come here and we do pnpm build, now we got an error. Let's see that. Build failed, invalid option in build, call rebuild. Huh, interesting. Let me check 1 second. The build config in developer starter. What am I missing? What am I missing? We've got the context. Yes. Oh, so we just call rebuild. Okay. So let's do, instead of doing this, we'll do context rebuild like that. Okay. And we're going to await this. So now if we clear this and we run it again, now we should see some output here that it's minified. Nice. So we've got our code minified, but we did not bundle it. So we need to also specify the bundle, because we don't want to keep the dependencies as external in here. We want to have the dependencies as just bundled. So let me do pnpm build again. And now if we check this, now we should see all the code bundled. So we have the code from the get publish date. We also have the code from index.ts, and also we've got everything minified because we told esbuild to just please make things as small as possible, like that. So nice, we've got the building. Now the only thing that it's missing now is that after rebuilding, we need to tell esbuild to stop, the process. So context, we're gonna do context.dispose. And now if we do this and we run it again, now we're building and the process stops, as you can see. Okay, so we build and process just finishes. Now imagine that we wanted to keep a dev server. Okay, so instead of doing rebuild, we would do context.serve or watch. Oh yeah, I forgot again. Yeah, it's watch and then serve. Yep. So with the context of watch, essentially what esbuild will do is just look at my files, and every time that I save them, it will just compile again. And then if I do await context.serve, then it will create a live server for me to just to be able to access those files right away. So if I command this out like this and we do this, now I don't know the port, so let's define the port. I think that the host server should be this folder, and the port in this case, we're going to do the 3000. Okay, so don't worry, we'll get deep into this. I just wanted to show you super quick. But if I do this now, you can see how this is running. If we go to my browser and I type localhost 3000, we should see my directory with my index.js file. Okay, and this index.js file, anytime that I change it, let's see, for example, I say, hey, like this. I save this because I save it and we are watching the files. Now esbuild will just rebuild it again. So if we refresh this, we can see how now this is included in here. Okay, I know that this is still not making sense probably to you guys, but the idea is that with esbuild, we can either just do a single build, okay, or we can just watch all the files, rebuild the files anytime that they change, and also create a live server in my computer that it's currently being served in localhost that contains these files that are being built constantly. Okay, so what we want to do is do a mix of these. So we want to have a command just for building, and we want to have a command just for developing, for serving. Okay, but we are at the end of today's live stream, so I will probably not do it now, but tell you guys that you have to wait until next Friday. 1 second, let me check the comments here. pnpm. I also added a small script which provides me with JS deliver link for easy pasting into webflow. Yes, very nice. So essentially here in serve, for example, we could do .dan, And we could do, for example, console log serving in HTTP localhost 3000. And if we do this in here, now you can see how we've got this message when we start serving. And with this, we can already access it right away. Or we could hint that this is a script. So we could do something like this, script, source, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so it's really, really up to you guys, however you want to define this. Nice. Technically, build.js can be a CLI too, with just, yeah. So you essentially, you could define the commands with, yeah, okay. So with the hashbang, you're probably meaning, right? So with these hashbang, where you define things, which usually I never use. I just rely on nice for that. I like to use the API from the package essentially because I get type safety. So if I use esbuild, I get all these options. I can see exactly all the available methods from esbuild. I get errors if I use something that it's not supposed to be there. Well, I'm not seeing an error, but because I'm using JavaScript, of course. But essentially, you get better auto completion when you use the package API. Nice. Okay, so we ended around here. So we talked about half of the stuff. Okay, I thought that we would have more time, but let me wrap this up for today, and then I will tell you what's going to happen next week. So first of all, thank you everyone for being here. Today we've been seeing exactly how to build this developer starter template from scratch so you can build your own boilerplate. Now, we just talked about Node.js, Git, TypeScript, and some bits of a bundler, but there are many things that are yet to be discussed. Like, how do I add formatting on my project? How do I add linting? How do I add automatic testing? And then how do I create CI/CD pipeline so I can keep testing my code and I keep deploying my code anytime that there is a change? Okay. So all of these is going to happen next Friday, and it's going to happen for Finsweet Plus. Okay, you already know it, but we do one session on YouTube, open session for everyone, and then one session for Finsweet Plus, so people can ask any questions. So for all the guys that are here and can assist next Friday's live stream, I'll appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to see you guys there. Yeah, I think I'm just going to wrap it up. Thank you guys. Appreciate a lot you being here. See you next Friday.